respected Shri Haripuri Boikarji, our moderator Gira, Mr. Gira, my young friends from various universities across the country. First of all, my best wishes to all of you on this auspicious occasion of Yuva Divas. It's indeed a pleasure for me to be amongst the midst of so many young and enterprising and budding lawyers of this country. So the topic for today, for the session is NRC, and basically the leading case session, and the case is Assam Public Works versus Union of India and others. Now, Assam Public Works is, for all of you to know, that it is still a work in progress, in the sense that the Assam Public Works case is still pending in the Supreme Court, and maybe a few chapters in the case still remains to be written. We have not seen the end of the case as yet, so we don't have in that sense a concluded judgment. In that sense, of course, the NRC has been published, as you all know, but since the matter, at a matter of law, the matter is still pending in the Supreme Court. Now, I should also, as I'm addressing to you, since I am also associated with the case, I'm representing a stakeholder in that case, we would have basically meant to keep the discussion today absolutely academic, and that's why you all are here. We generally know about the case. I mean, those who have not had an in-depth exposure to the case, generally know that there is this National Register of Citizens, Indian citizens, and an exercise has taken place, monitored by the Supreme Court, and now in August of 2019, we had NRC which has been published, and in that NRC we have around 19 lakh people who have not been able to make it to the list, in the sense that they have not been included in the list, and the matter is pending at that stage. Now, in order to understand the whole issue of how the NRC came about and how it has progressed and all that, we will basically have to go to the entire background of the issues of migration in Northeast, and especially with special focus special focus on Assam. Now, migration, as we all know, is generally, it can be all migration that happen in the world can generally be put in two categories. It can be either involuntary migration and or voluntary migration. Now, involuntary migration is to be dealt in a particular way, and a voluntary migration is to be dealt in a particular way. So far as voluntary migration is concerned, so far as Assam is concerned, in the context of today's discussion, the migration that Assam has been, or Northeast generally has been victim of, is the voluntary migration which has been induced, or migration, as we will discuss going ahead, migration under, you can say, a planned political strategy. Some may want to say political conspiracy, whatever the way best you understand it, the way you want to understand it. Now, it has its origin. You have to appreciate that we have to go back at least 120 years back to the beginning of the last century. It had its origin in British India, pre-independence India, the issue of migration that confronts Assam today or Northeast today. And the beginning of the last century, 1901, the census of Assam had 12.4% minority population. That was the time when the opposition to the imperial rule was growing in that part of throughout the country. In that part of the country, it was more intense. Bengal, you know, at that point of time included a huge province, the whole of eastern India, Bihar, Jharkhand, today's Orissa, the whole of today's Bangladesh, the whole of northeast, today's West Bengal, of course. Everything was included in Bengal, and the capital of the country used to be Kolkata, Calcutta at that time. Now, in order to quell that, the imperial rule had come up with this under the strategy of divide and rule, had come up with this idea of partition of Bengal, and that happened in 1905. Basically, the Hindu majority part of Bengal would be the western side of Bengal in that sense. Bengal, Orissa, Jharkhand, and all these areas would be in one part, and today's Bangladesh and today's northeast were put in the other part. That was the partition of Bengal. It led to a lot of strife, a lot of opposition, and since it was under a planned political strategy, we go ahead, we see that in the year 1906, the All India Muslim League is formed which is born in Dhaka, the capital of today's Bangladesh. And migration or demographic invasion, as you may call it, to Assam, to Northeast, started as a matter of political strategy. A demographic invasion of Northeast started, which Assam was the victim of that. That may, if you want to go back, you want to study the history, understand the history of NRC, the migration into Assam, the artificial migration, the way you may call it, had started that time. The reunification of Bengal happened in 1911, but notwithstanding the reunification, the demographic invasion issues continued. In the earlier 2-3 decades of the last century, it had gone unabated, and one telling observation from the Census Commissioner of Assam, which I want to quote before you, of 1931, you can say sums up the issue in that sense. And just I'll quote it, and it says, C.S. Mulhan, the census superintendent of Assam at that point of time, said, probably the most important event in the province during the last 25 years, an event, moreover, which seems likely to alter permanently the whole feature of Assam and to destroy the whole structure of Assamese culture and civilization, has been the invasion of vast horde of land-hungry immigrants, mostly Muslims, from the districts of East Bengal. Wherever the carcass, the vultures will gather there. Now, this observation of C.S. Mulhan is not something that I am making or someone, it is also approvingly or in a way quoted by Supreme Court in its judgment. You may find 2015 3 SCC page 1. The judgment of Assam Sammalita Mahasabha, Supreme Court judgment starts with that, and where it traces back the issues of illegal migration into Assam. Now that is 1931. We come to 1935. 1935, the Government of India Act, all of you know, studying that. Then 1935, the Government of India Act provided for provincial legislatures. And under that, the provincial legislatures, elections took place, and the Muslim League came into power in Assam. Between 37 and 38, and then again 39 to 41, the government led by Sadullah was in power. And they had adopted a very a strategy which apparently was innocuous, but it was not so, as we later see and understand. It was the strategy of what the scheme they called is Grow More Food. The Grow More Food scheme was adopted. You know, Assam at that point of time was oil rich. Assam was rich in tea. Assam had a high per capita income. In a way, it was affluent. And Assam had that vast Brahmaputra plains, which were sparsely populated but very fertile, cultivable lands. Population was less. So under that planned strategy of demographic invasion, to give it a cover, the Grow More Food was conceived by the Muslim League government, but it was actually not so. And the Viceroy of India, before Lord Mountbatten, was Lord Wavell. And Lord Wavell had summed it up in his Viceroy's journal. And one line I just want to quote there. And Lord Wavell had said, the chief political problem is the desire of the Muslim ministers to increase this immigration into uncultivated government lands under the slogan of Grow More Food. But what they are really after is Grow More Muslims. That is what the Viceroy had commented. And now we come to independence. 1947, independence happened. Assam, by the grace of God and by the efforts of nationalist leaders like Gopinath Bordoloi and our own Shyama Prasad Mukherjee and leaders of that stature, Assam remained with us. Assam remained in India. And that should have, people should have seen through that, and that should have been the end of this problem of illegal migration. But unfortunately, it did not happen that way. Why it did not happen that way? Because the political party in power, or the people in power, continued with these issues of illegal migration and continued to encourage illegal migration with the sole object of vote bank politics, because they used to bring there those people, settle them there. In return, they used to get that unstinted support from them when it came to electoral politics. You know, Assam has, specifically not only Assam, the entire of eastern India has a very porous border with eastern, since long it had since with eastern Pakistan, now today's Bangladesh. And the entire border spans around 4,156 kilometers. That is against the India-Pakistan border of today, which is something like 3,300 odd kilometers. But that border is very porous, and steps should have been then only taken to seal the border in that sense, which has not taken. And because of the porous border, the migration or the illegal migration, even after a partition, it continued unabated. The third reason for post-independence migration was also the design of Pakistan in some way or the other to demographically invade these parts of India. And the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, had written a book. That book's name is Myths of Partition. And in that book, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto had made a very telling comment, and I just want to quote that for all of you to get the perspective. And he had said, "It would be wrong to think that Kashmir is the only dispute that divides India and Pakistan, though undoubtedly the most significant. One at least as nearly as important as the Kashmir dispute is that of Assam and the districts of India adjacent to East Pakistan. To these districts, Pakistan has very good claim." So that sums up even their strategy at that point of time, is why artificial or induced migration or demographic invasion efforts continued in Assam. Now we see, if you come to the rate of, the early decades of partition and post-partition, we see that the rate of growth of minority population in Assam has been significantly higher than the rate of growth of population of the other communities, you compare them. And to give you just, to explain this, to illustrate this with two examples I would want to. As I said, that in the census of 1901, the minority population of Assam was 12.4, and in the last census of Assam, which is 2011, the minority population of Assam is 34.22. The second illustration, in the 2 decades between 1971 and 1991, the minority population of the majority population of Assam had grown at a rate of 41.89%. To this, during the same time, the minority population of Assam has grown at the rate of 77.42%, which is almost double, which clearly shows that it is artificial, it is in a way induced, it is for the reason of illegal migration. Now we come to the further developments post-independence, and we see that slowly a popular sentiment started growing in Assam, the sentiment against illegal migration. That sentiment had its trigger in 1979 when there was a death of a particular MP in a place called Mongoldoi in Assam. Hiralal Patwari, he died, and there was a by-election to be conducted, and it was discovered that the whole voter list is full with illegal migrants. And that was the spark for the very popular movement, one of the most successful movement after post-independence, the Assam movement. The Assam agitation, as we all know it, is a 6-year movement, and that movement was all pervading. I mean, it was with popular support of the entire Assamese community, and that movement continued for 6 years. And in 1985, we come to the Assam Accord of 1985, and then that decision was taken therein that we will have a cut-off date so far as East Pakistan is concerned, or East Bangladesh is concerned. So anyone who comes into Assam, who has come into Assam till 25th of March 1971, which is the date of declaration of independence by Bangladesh, they will be deemed to be citizens, and anyone who is detected to be after that date will have to be detected, and then they will have to be identified, detected and deported. That was the decision, primarily the decision of the Assam Accord. That was in 1985. Concrete steps should have been taken, but concrete steps were not taken to implement the Assam Accord, primarily because of political reasons, we can say. In the meantime, when the Assam Accord was going, the Assam education was going on, in the year 1983, it was at almost at its peak. So as to mislead the people, or so as to quell the movement, a law was brought about, which we know as the infamous Illegal Migrants Determination by Tribunal Act, the IMDT Act as we popularly know it. And the IMDT Act of 1983, rather than although the declared objectives of the IMDT Act was that it is a measure to address the illegal migration problem, to detect foreigners and to turn them out. But what the IMDT Act did was that it fixed a reverse burden of proof, the reverse onus. Like in the Foreigners Act, if I am alleged to be a foreigner, because I have all the documents with me to show that no, I am a bona fide citizen of the country, so the burden of proof will be on me. That is what the Foreigners Act say, and all the Foreigners Act jurisdiction legislation all across the world say. But in the IMDT Act, they fixed a reverse burden, and they put the burden on the state or the person who alleges that a person to be a foreigner. So if I am saying that you are a foreigner and the tribunal would want me to prove that you are a foreigner, how can I prove that you are a foreigner? Because I have only seen you in my neighborhood in recent times. I have only seen that you have come after 71. I can only say that orally, or try to prove that orally. But all the documents, all the evidence, that is also the principle of section 106 of the Evidence Act. So that was what the IMDT Act did. And as a result of which, the issue of illegal migration was not at all addressed in Assam for almost 30 years post the Assam Accord, despite having the Accord saying so. The present Chief Minister of Assam, Shri Sarbananda Sonowal, had to come to the Supreme Court by means of a PIL in the year 2000. And in that PIL, he had asked for declaring that law to be unconstitutional, the IMDT Act. Supreme Court considers that. Supreme Court in the year 2005, 12th of July 2005, ultimately declares the IMDT Act to be unconstitutional. And when several issues are taken, the issue of reverse onus that I just told you is also very much a part of the judgment. The judgment is 2005, 5 SCC 665. And at para 63 thereof, the Supreme Court makes a very telling observation. And I just want to, for your appreciation, I want to just quote that observation. When Supreme Court says that there can be no manner of doubt that the state of Assam is facing external aggression and internal disturbance on account of large-scale illegal migration of Bangladeshi nationals. It therefore becomes the duty of the Union of India to take all measures to protect state of Assam from such external aggression and internal disturbance, as in Article 355 of the Constitution. So Supreme Court had gone to the extent of saying that the state of Assam is facing external aggression because of the unabated illegal migration. So essentially, the issue was of national security, and that's the way Supreme Court has identified it in 2005. But 2005 marks a watershed year because since the Assam Accord in 2005 itself, ultimately the decision for implementation of NRC is taken by in tripartite meetings between central government, state government and the All Assam Students Union. So we will now come to the discussion as to the framework of the NRC, and to understand as to what is the legal framework of NRC, we will also have to appreciate and understand that NRC is basically a citizenship issue, and in our constitution, how is the citizenship law dealt with? Now, we all know that citizenship is covered under entry 17 of list 1 of the constitution, and entry 17 list 1 of the constitution, which means that it is a union subject and citizenship is entirely a matter for the central government. Now, in the constitution itself, there was, at the time of commencement of the constitution, when we made the constitution in the year 1950, we had put certain provisions which we can say were temporary provisions, because the constitution makers themselves, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar himself said that these are temporary provisions. So Article 5 to 11 we have. Article 5 to 11 is covered in part 2 of the constitution, and Article 5 to 11, basically 6, 5, 6, 7, 8 and all that, they provide for citizenship at the commencement of the constitution. And there is a very important article, the last article, which is Article 11. And Article 11 says that though we have made the law on citizenship, the parliament will have the superseding power, the power to make permanent law in that sense in respect of citizenship. And what Article 11 says, I'll just read out Article 11 for you to be in the perspective. It is Parliament to regulate the right of citizenship by law. Nothing in the foregoing provisions, thereby meaning Article 5 to 10, shall derogate from the power of the Parliament to make any provisions with respect to acquisition and termination of citizenship and all matters relating to citizenship. So Article 11 is the, you can say, the source of power in that sense, other than I said what I quoted earlier, entry 17 of list 1. Now, having the power from the constitution, the source of power in the constitution, the Parliament has enacted the Citizenship Act 1955. And under the Citizenship Act, we have 5 different types of citizenship, which is citizenship by birth, citizenship by descent, citizenship by registration, citizenship by naturalization, and citizenship by acquisition of property, territory, you can say. So that is the framework of the citizenship law under our constitution and the Citizenship Act that we have. Now we come to NRC. When we go to the history of NRC per se, we will have to trace it to the 1951 census. So when 1951 is the first census that happened after India became independent. So in the 1951 census, there was separately a national register of citizens which was prepared in Assam, which had all the details regarding every person. So an NRC, the National Register of Citizens of Indian citizens living in Assam, for the first time came to be made in the year 1951. But like census, every 10 years you go on having census after census. So 61, 71 every year we had. But the NRC of 1951 has never been updated. It has continued. It was made in 1951. It was never updated. And when the Assam Accord of 1985 had come, the other important fact is that when the Assam Accord of 1985 had come, in clause 8.1 of the Assam Accord, we had a clause which provided for updation of that NRC list of 1951. So clause 8 of Assam Accord says the government will arrange for the issue of citizens certificate by authorities of the central government. Now that fixation of date also and all that again is a subject of challenge under in the Supreme Court. I am not going into that discussion for the present. Now when we go to the legislative provisions or the provisions of the NRC, 51 the NRC happened, no updation. 85 the Assam Accord said that update, one of the assurances to update the NRC. Still then nothing happened. 2003 the central government under the citizenship rules, section 18 of the Citizenship Act, they made a rule which is called the Citizenship Registration of Citizens and Issue of National Identity Card Rules 2003. Now under that provided for issuance of national identity cards to all citizens of India. Under that rules, the Registrar General of India was designated as the Registrar General of Citizens Register, RGCR as we say. Authorities were recommended at the state level, at the district level, at the town level, at the taluka level, or the local village level. That structure was put in the 2003 rules which provided for it. But no All India exercise for NRC happened as a pursuance of the 2003 rules. And so far as the rest of the country is concerned, till today there is no exercises happened. Only in Assam, pursuant to the decision of 2005 to update the NRC of 1951, the 2003 rules only as applicable to the state of Assam was amended in the year 2009. and it provided for a structure for updation of NRC in only so far as Assam is concerned. Now 2009 is the year also when the Assam Public Works case is filed in Supreme Court as a PI. The organization, the NGO which files it is by the name of Assam Public Works. So they asked for two prayers basically. They said that you update the NRC of 1951 so we can identify who all were there in the NRC, and then number two, they said that you then also purge the voters, the electoral roll, the voters list, and you remove all those persons who are identified as not being citizens. So that is when the PIL came to be filed in 2009. Now, pursuant to the 2009 amendment of the Assam rules, we had a long round of, you can say, discussion with the stakeholders who were all involved. There was a cabinet subcommittee which was formed in the state, and the cabinet subcommittee, after discussing with all these stakeholders, all people, all groups who may be affected by the preparation of NRC, they ultimately came up with what we call as modalities for the NRC exercise. Now these modalities came to be around 2012 or 13, and this was finalized. In the meantime, the matter was going on in the Supreme Court. Now what the rules and the Assam amended rules and also the modalities provide, who all can be included in the National Register of Citizens. Just for your clarity, everyone, there are two basic documents in the NRC which are called the legacy documents. Enrollment in the NRC can happen on the basis of two documents. One is that the NRC of 1951 itself, if you are included in that list, or since the Assam Accord provided for a cutoff date of 25th March 1971, you have to be included in any of the voters list which were published prior to that cutoff date. Now, if me or my father or my grandfather obviously was born before that date, maybe chances of them being, being in that list. Additionally, those persons who are included in those two legacy documents, additionally all their descendants, there was a provision that all their descendants, like for me who was born after 71, so how can I be there in the previous list? So I have to show my connection with my ancestor who was there in any list prior to that. So anyone who is born or who has been born after in this new millennium will obviously have to show some linkage documents. So that we had two categories of documents which are called the list A documents, which are the legacy documents, and which we have another set of documents which are called the list B documents. Since the NRC records were not available throughout the state of Assam, in some districts the records of 51 were destroyed. So in the modalities, additionally a list of 16 documents were then provided, which I can just mention for your convenience. If you just want to know which all those documents were, there are 16 documents which included the land tenancy record, the citizenship certificates, the permanent residence certificates, the refugee registration certificates, passports, LIC, government certificates, a whole lot of 16 documents are there. Similarly, in order to show your linkage also, they had provided for 8 sort of documents which you can show, by which you can show that although you were born later, but your ancestors were there in Assam prior to that cutoff date, and so since you show that linkage, your name will be included. Now, acting thereunder, the Supreme Court was monitoring. In 2005, everyone was asked to apply, and everyone has applied. 3.29 crore people had applied for enrollment, and the exercise went for 4 years, and ultimately in August of 2019 we had that NRC. And the present stage of NRC is that if you are not, 19 lakh people are not there, if you are not there in the NRC, you have a right of appeal to the tribunal. So the stage of there are some issues with the final publication. Maybe it will be reviewed, maybe it will not be reviewed, but time will say, and those will be ultimately left out. We'll have that remedy of appeals, and then thereafter the remedies that will go on. Now, as the NRC exercise was going on between 2015 and 19, number of issues had come up, and there are offshoot judgments of the Assam Accord, of the Assam Public Works judgment. If you are interested, as students of law, you want to note down, you can note down. One judgment is of 2018, 1 SCC 579. That is the judgment of Rupajan Begum. That was regarding the validity of one of the documents, the Gaon Panchayat certificate. There is one judgment which is 2018, 1 SCC, page 594. That is Kamalakya Devukaista's judgment, that is regarding the green channel entry into NRC of all original inhabitants. I should tell you this. There is a provision in the NRC that if you are an original inhabitant of Assam, you have a sort of a green channel entry. You don't need to go through the rigors of all those documents and all that. That was challenged in a way, saying that if people have green channel entry, will they not be considered later as, you know, class 1 citizens, and will be class 2 citizens, superior citizens, we are inferior citizens. So that that apprehension, that judgment was filed. Supreme Court had clarified that judgment is 2018 1 SCC 594. Then there is another judgment which is very recent judgment, with the judgment of Abdul Quddus 2019 6 SCC 604, if you are interested in, no doubt. Now that again provided that those who were already declared as foreigners by the Foreigners Tribunal, whether the NRC entry, suppose I have been tried as an alleged foreigner in a tribunal and ultimately I won that case and I was declared as a genuine Indian citizen, and now the NRC people say by virtue of that exercise that no, you are not a you are a genuine Indian citizen, your documents are somehow or the other faulty. Now the Supreme Court has clarified that if there is a exercise which has already happened by a tribunal, then that will supersede any NRC exercise. So that judgment is Abdul Quddus 2019 6 SCC 604. So these are the three judgments, and as I told you in the beginning, the NRC, the Assam Public Courts case itself is a work in progress. It is still going on, it is still pending. A hearing happened this month also, maybe next month again we have to have a hearing. So that is what basically I have to say about the NRC and basically on the law part. Now NRC, as you all know, would be, this is a first time exercise. Definitely a first time exercise in our country, and probably one first time exercise maybe in the whole world. I don't know whether we will have to find out parallels of that anywhere in the world. So there may be issues here and there, but the issue really is NRC is a national security issue. There cannot be no doubt, no second thoughts about it. The requirement, the justification of NRC is definitely there. There is our history which justifies it. There are genuine apprehensions, and there is a definite issue of demographic invasion, of cultural invasion, or whatever way you say it. So NRC is called for, is my respectful submission. And so far as NRC in the rest of the country is concerned, I mean, I have told you, I have shared it with you that there is this 2003 rules which provides for NRC, provides for NPR, but there is no policy decision as on today to implement it. There has not been any policy decision, there has not been any consideration. The consideration in the case of Assam took not less than 3 to 4 years, and at the end of it, even almost after 8 years, the actual NRC exercise started. And that also after discussing with all the stakeholders. So I am sure if and when any decision is taken in respect of NRC in Assam, then that will be an open exercise. Everyone will be taken on board. Everyone's apprehension will be obviously considered. But so far as Assam is concerned, because today my topic was regarding NRC of Assam, in Assam the NRC is definitely called for. And I just want to end by, since today is Yuva Divas, I want to end with a quotation of Swami Vivekananda in the context of today's, or relevance of today's NRC. And he had said, I found it very relevant for today, in today's NRC discussion, so I said, Swami Vivekananda had said, each work has to pass through these stages: ridicule, opposition, and then acceptance. Those who think ahead of their time are sure to be misunderstood. Thank you very much. I thank you all my young friends. I thank the organizers for giving me the honor to be sharing my thoughts with you on this day. I hope it may have been a bit informative for all of you. Thanks a lot again.